Hey, this is Lou Mangello from WDW Radio, and you're listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. Let's do this.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode 397 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. Only the most broken people can be great leaders. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off like you do every from the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Sally from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello everyone.
Hello.
Hopefully, those of you that took part in Thanksgiving had a good holiday.
Yeah, we did.
Good. Oh, I can give me a few more days. I might be able to fit back in my regular pants again. Until then, spandex is your friend. Okay, so yeah, and obviously we were off last week, so some of this news we've been sitting on, and I still don't want to talk about it a week later. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
So we got some 10 o'clock news.
This one.
Well, first up, we got for the supernatural community. Yeah, Nikki A. Cox, who played Meg.
Version 1.
Version 1. It's supernatural, folks. Yeah, in the first and fourth seasons, has passed away at the age of 47. She had been diagnosed with leukemia a year ago. So yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
47 is way too young.
Cancer is just.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Yep.
People aren't kidding when they say F cancer.
Yep.
That's all. That's all.
Yes. Our good friend of the show, KJ, before life took her in other directions, every year she held before the pandemic, really. Every year she held KJ's Cancer Sucks party to raise money for cancer research and all those things. So yeah, cancer does suck. So there is that. So pour one out next to baby for Nikki. And then it's been a week and I'm still struggling with this one. I think anyway. More so because he was supposed to be at GalaxyCon this coming weekend, which I'm going to be at. So Jason David Frank, aka Tommy Oliver, one of the best known, and I think by a lot of the community considered one of the best Power Rangers in the entire franchise, has passed away at the age of 49.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the news and I was like, no way. No, this is a joke. This is a very bad joke, very poor taste. But this cannot be real. And the more, like so many of these, the more news comes out, it's like, it is true. And it is, I mean, and like you said, he was, I mean, not just like the best, but kind of an ambassador for the fandom, for the show. Like he was never like really like ashamed to have been at one of the Power Rangers, because sometimes stars, in some of these, quote unquote kid shows, well, it is a kid show, but as they progress through their careers, they're like, oh no, that was something I did for the money, or they call it old shame on TV tropes. But no, he was like all in, and he came back several times to do, in future seasons.
I believe he has the most appearances out of anybody.
Yes, I'm willing to bet you're right.
Yeah.
And it's just, he was like, very, very much excited to meet fans. And in fact, I mean, I'd seen him in passing at several fan X's, and I'm like, oh, I'll go meet him. I will. And it just never happened for one reason or another. And now I'm just so bummed because I'm like, I never got to. And now I won't. And it's just, it sucks.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and yeah.
I was glad that I finally got to meet him at the last PopCon before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And he was a big draw. He had a line, a very long line, even before he showed up at his booth. And he'd always came out the door already on his phone, filming something for his Instagram or whatever, posting online, always waving to fans, and always made sure to talk to him. And I made him chuckle because I was standing there getting my movie, my 95 movie poster autographed, and I told him, I was like, Tommy was my first celebrity crush as a youngster. When you hit a certain age and the hormones start coming in, and you start, instead of going from ew boys to ooh boys, Tommy Oliver was it for me.
Well, and we all love the Pink Ranger. Yeah, and we all love the Pink Ranger, and they were an item, so it all makes sense. So
and then I got so mad when Kimberly dumped him via Dear John letter, and I
know
I was so pissed off for like the last almost 30 years since.
they did that shit dirty. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
It kind of was par for the course back in the day, but yeah, it was. And then he came back, and when they had that anniversary, the Shattered Grid series, which was in the comics, and they did the little video where basically Tommy becomes Lord Draken, and it's like an amalgamation of the White and the Green Ranger and a bunch of other Rangers, and he was like, in the live action, it was so kind of dark and gritty, and it was kind of cool. And there was that whole storyline, and he was just always up. They were like, Saban called. They were like, "Hey, we need Tommy," and he's like, "I'm there," and there he was. And even with that short cameo in the 2017 movie, which I really wish had gotten off the franchise off the ground, but it was and then, gosh, and just the way that it happened. I mean, we kind of dance around the topic, and for good reason. It's an uncomfortable one, and not one we don't want to make light of or at all. But I feel, having me personally, having been affected by suicide, and both friends and family who have attempted and succeeded, my thought is, you got to talk about it. You can't just dance around it. You got to just hit it head on and just say, look, this is a thing. And, your brain just tells you flat out lies. And there's just something in your head when you're in that place that just, it just does. And I've had a taste of it myself, and it doesn't matter. Like, we're talking about here, he was this very popular celebrity, hit a chord with a certain generation. We all loved him. We all loved his character, and even then, it doesn't matter. Your head just makes you think that's the only way out, and it is awful to think about. And it's hard to know. It's hard to know who is going through it, because it feeds off of silence. It feeds off of isolation, and people just kind of isolate themselves. And so it's just, I don't know the solution. I mean, there are people, bless them, that are doing their best to help those who suffer from depression and things, but there are hotlines. There was that new 988 number that they just established. Just it's, you have to recognize that's what this is. That this isn't, like, these thoughts are not real. Well, they are real, but they aren't. I'm trying to think of a way to say it. They aren't true. They are lies. Just and the first step is to recognize this is a lie, and I do not need to believe it. And if it gets really bad, you need to talk to somebody. I don't want to simplify it, because I know how hard it is, but it is just flat out the case.
Yeah.
Reach out, talk to somebody, even if it's one of those hotline numbers, dial it. It will. And if you're a friend that somebody reaches out to, you don't really need to have all the answers. You just need to be there. That has been my experience. Is you need to be there, and you just need to be able to talk or to let them talk to you and listen. You don't have to be the expert.
Yeah.
It's just I'm gutted. I am honestly 100% just gutted.
Yeah.
That
it was a hard day to be on social media, because I follow so many of the Power Rangers actors, and just all of them that I follow were just, you could just tell they were all absolutely just shocked and had no idea what to say.
I mean, this is the elder statesman of the franchise, basically.
Yeah.
And he was, Tommy was the leader on screen, and he and Jason David Frank was sort of the leader behind the scenes. So it's kind of, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Flat out.
So I guess not really a whole lot to say with that. I will say, if you happen to be going to GalaxyCon in Columbus, Ohio this weekend, they have put in the schedule a kind of remembering Jason David Frank, and presumably to take place of what probably would have been his Q&A.
Right.
And they've so, and then on the guest page down at the bottom with all the other cast cancellations, they have kept his image in there, but put the the year of his birth, and then the year of his death, and they're doing the same for Kevin Conroy as well, because he was supposed to be at GalaxyCon as well. So check if you are going to be attending, check the schedule online for when and where those are.
That is just gonna be so hard.
Yeah,
because you don't want to be disrespectful or or anything, but you also don't want to just ignore it too.
Yeah.
And it's not like other cancellations, like, oh, it was a schedule conflict. Like, no, not at all.
No.
Not in the slightest.
Yeah.
So, but bless him for trying, for doing something.
Yeah. So, well, there's no good way to pivot from that, so we'll just soldier on. To
life.
Yeah, to life, and apparently Taylor Swift is like, I broke the internet, and Disney was like, hold my beer. The battle of the Bobs, the Great Bob Switch.
And I remember hearing like
Freaky Friday,
Yeah. I remember hearing a crazy rumor about this last year, and everybody that was talking about it was like, "Oh, it's just a rumor. It's not actually going to happen. That's just silly."
So Bob Chapek, who took over, granted at probably one of the hardest times to take over during the pandemic,
right?
and has been the CEO of Disney for the entire length of the pandemic, which I would not have wanted to be in his shoes at all. That was the big steep hill that they put him up and were like, here, climb this. Apparently, enough people complained or whatever. So he has been ousted as the CEO of Disney. Not long after they just extended his contract. But instead, they could have easily, anybody could have been put in there, either as interim or as new CEO. But instead, apparently, they're like, well, we had a Bob, and now we've got another Bob. Let's stick with Bob. So Bob Iger is back.
Which, okay, there are several things about this that make me raise eyebrows, and there are certain, I follow certain people who talk about the behind the scenes meat grinder, as it were, of Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they announced it like on a Sunday night that. Like, I got out of the shower, I was getting ready for bed, and I went downstairs, and Jared's like, did you hear the Disney news? I'm like, what Disney news? JPEG's out. I'm like, what? And I thought that Bob Iger had stepped down originally because they weren't happy with the way he was going about things, and so they were, because he spent too much money on Fox or some of those other acquisitions. They're like, well, here, let's bring in the bean counter, because that's what JPEG was. Is he's the money guy, so that we don't overspend again. And now it's like, just kidding, we want the big spender back, I guess. I don't know, but it all just seems so weird. And the biggest thing about this is they announced it on a Sunday night without any kind of warning or inkling that anything was going to happen. Like you said, they just extended Chapek's contract.
Yeah.
It's like there is something rotten in the state of Denmark, as the Bard would say.
Yeah. Well, Iger was supposed to leave because he was set for retirement anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And by divine intervention or whatever, he decided to go ahead and retire just a little early and got out right before the pandemic. So he gets out and Chapek takes over, and then the world goes to hell in a handbasket. And like I said, I don't envy the position that Chapek was in. No, I have not been back to the Disney parks since well before the pandemic. But from what I understand of the people I know that go either local and therefore go on a regular basis, or go often enough, that the way that the parks were being run was just, the people were not happy, even though they're at capacity. And when you expect them to be capacity, but
there's been an uptick in fights too. I know this is kind of off topic a bit, but just it seems like people are just, they're packing them in, and they're charging for that Genie Plus thing, which I still don't get. I'm like, I am not.
I don't either. I was telling Chauncey, I was like, usually, even if I don't go, like we were going
Yeah.
year after year after year, so we could see the changes, but we were able to keep up with it. And then we had some
Mhm.
gaps where it's like we went to Disneyland instead, or we did a cruise instead. So there'd be a little gap
Right.
of us going to Florida. But it
Mhm.
got to the point where it's like I told Chauncey, I was like, I don't know how to plan a trip anymore. It's
No, and
gotten too
it's
complicated.
and the way I this I heard it explained. I'm like, are you going on a Disney vacation or are you storming the beaches of Normandy?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Mhm.
this does not sound relaxing. And I'm like, I am really glad we went to Disneyland for our honeymoon back in 2016 because I don't think I could do that again
Yeah.
now. And it's just and I mean, yeah, Chapek, it's easy, he's a scapegoat, and I'm not saying he was, that he was all sunshine and daisies, but I know Genie Plus was spearheaded by under Iger's watch, and there were a couple other things like I mean, Disney Plus was also Iger's baby, and I know that some of that hasn't gone a 100% according to plan either. But then again, JPEG made some comments that were just like, "Dude, you're the boss of Disney. Why are you saying this, especially about animation?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on,
Mhm.
man. So yeah, I'm just popping one big bucket of popcorn, and we're gonna see how this shakes out.
Yeah.
Although it is kind of entertaining. It's sad because it's like it is, we all have fond memories of Disney, not just the parks, but the movies and the shows and just that, the Renaissance and everything. But at the same time, it's like, what are you guys doing? And I think even like normies are noticing. Like I've seen articles from people on people posting them on Facebook that are like, and like I thought just Disney fanatics were talking about this. No, these are like, my aunt talking about like what is going on at Disney. I'm like, oh boy. It's like, how long do you have for me to try to explain it? Like, it might take a week. And I don't even think I'm that big of an expert. I just listen to people who are.
I don't either. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, Lou, Becky, I need you both to hold my hand.
Mhm.
Like, this is nuts.
I'm lost.
I mean, and there like rumors of they want to sell to Apple and they want to do that. And I'm like, what?
That rumor has happened several times throughout the years, so I wouldn't put too much stock in that one, but
but I didn't put much stock in the rumor that Bob Iger was going to come back. And here we are.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
At this point, anything is possible. So
that is true.
Pop the popcorn and watch this space because it's gonna get a little wacky here.
I think so.
Happy 100th birthday, Disney. Jeez.
Yeah, really.
Just
only going into your 100th anniversary celebration.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, my.
So, anyway, that's the Disney drama.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you guys doing? Seriously, come on, man.
If they knew, they probably still wouldn't tell us.
I'm like, I don't think anybody knows. So,
yeah,
whatever.
So, cool.
Cool.
So, a little less convoluted, closer to home. PopCon, as I'm gearing up for my last convention of the year with GalaxyCon. Already looking ahead to next year, PopCon, which is going to be in their 10th year. Yeah. Have made some announcements. First of all, there are going to be 2 shows next year. They are expanding again, not to Fort Wayne this time, but to Louisville, which is 100 miles down the road for me as the crow flies.
Going interstate, I see.
Yeah. So they're going to be in Louisville June 16th, 17th, and 18th. And tickets for that are already on sale. No guest announcements yet. And then, of course, the OG show, number 10, is at the end of August here in Indy, August 25th, 26th, and 27th. And they have made some guest announcements. Of course, some of them are voice actors. I have no idea who some of these people are. No offense.
Well, you can't keep track of everything.
Yeah. We do have a couple Power Rangers, but they're I haven't gotten to, well, actually Tracy Lynn Cruz, because I have watched some of In Space and Turbo. I did watch Turbo. I stopped somewhere in space, so I kind of know who she is. I've actually not gotten to Time Force yet, but I do know who Jason Font is, just because of his association with the franchise. And then there's a gal that's a cosplayer entertainer that was on America's Got Talent that I don't recognize her. Sorry. But Patrick Warburton, which depending on who you are, you're either like, oh, he's the Tick, or he's Elaine's boss from Seinfeld, or, for us, he's Kronk.
He's Kronk. He's also the Lemony Snicket narrator in the Netflix series Unfortunate Events, which is quite genius. I didn't know. The first time they announced it, I was like, that's going to be weird, but no, he's great. So
yeah. Or if you're, again, speaking of the Disney parks, you're like Chauncey and me, and you'll kind of look at each other sometimes, and you put a thumbs up and you go, nice work, pal, because he is the face and voice of the pre-show for Soarin'. So
nice.
Go look that up on YouTube and you'll get it. There's some inside jokes there. But for those of us that love the Emperor's New Groove, he is Kronk.
My spinach puffs.
Yeah, my spinach puffs. And then I'm very excited about this guest announcement, but probably not for the reason most people might think, because I've never actually watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I think I know why you're excited,
but
my dear.
James Marsters, who,
yes,
well, I know him from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, but I've never actually sat down and watched Buffy. But he is the voice, the narration of the Dresden Files. So.
To most fans of the Dresden Files, his voice is Harry Dresden.
Yes.
And I'm with you, Rachel. I have never watched any Buffy stuff. I just haven't. Not out of not wanting to, but
I have.
I know him.
I mean, watch the episodes with him in it. The other ones you can kind of skip. That's how I actually got hooked into Dresden Files, as I found out that Jane was because I got a science fiction magazine, and on the back it showed a picture of Stormfront with James Mercer's face narrating, and it's like, ooh, I gotta check this out, and I fell in love.
So the entire time I was binging through the Dresden Files and got to that one book that he's not the narrator for. I'm like, is it over yet? Is it over yet? Is it over yet? Is it over yet?
But then at least they did re-record, and that is the only option now that you can get is the one with him and not the other
now, but not at the time when I had to listen to it.
Well, and Jared has all of them and both versions. Although, well, it's probably a spoiler to tell what the headcanon is about that specific book and why the other narrator might be okay given the context of what's going on in that book. But
I mean, I don't know, you could come up with some headcanon, but it's still the voice is not right.
I know.
Is the point? No offense to the person. It's just they're not James Marsters.
I know. I am agreeing with you. I'm just saying there is a point of view where that could work. But again, I can't spoil it because we are going to talk about it later at some point.
Yes.
And we'll spoil it then for our listeners. But yeah, so yeah, he basically, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, the TV show, what I've seen of it, is fine. It's not.
Yeah.
You just got to treat it as its own thing. But James Marsters,
Yep.
basically, his voice is Harry Dresden.
Oh, yeah.
He might not look like Harry Dresden, but his voice is. So.
Yep. And
That's all that matters.
And Jim Butcher, I give him all the credit. He did well narrating the law, but he was just like, he was even a little leery. He's like, I'm taking this away from James. I hope I do my best.
And knowing people who know Jim Butcher, I'm certain he would have been like, what? Why? No. But there you go.
Yep.
Oh well. Such is life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, that's exciting.
Yes.
You have to have him sign something Dresden Files related. I don't,
Yeah, I know. I'm going to gotta find something.
Just, I mean, you could have him sign the book, but it's not quite the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not the audio.
Yeah.
Print off a book cover or something on nice paper and say, I love your narration. I love these books because you read them.
Mm-hmm. I'll come up with something. I've got time. It's not till the end of August, so
that's true. That's true. You'll work it out.
Yep.
Now, because audiobooks, I'm sure they're still available on CD somewhere, but it's just easier to get them on Audible and wherever else you get digital.
Or from your local library.
Your local library. We have Hoopla back now, which I'm excited about, except it's only videos. It's not audiobooks. Which is kind of a bummer. But,
All right. Moving on to Doctor Who news. We have got our new companion.
Yes.
So, Millie Gibson, who comes from Coronation Street, as it's a lot of people do.
Yeah, I was like, who doesn't come from Coronation Street? Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in the UK, you come from Coronation Street. Here in the US, you could either cut your teeth in soaps or really low budget horror movies. Take your pick.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but Millie Gibson, she's going to be the companion for Shooty's doctor, obviously. And her character's name is Ruby Sunday.
Yes.
And that's all we really know so far.
I keep humming. Go goodbye, Ruby Tuesday.
Ruby Tuesday from the Stones. Yes. I was thinking the exact same thing there, Chrissy.
So I'm like, there's gonna be some filks. I just know it.
Mm-hmm.
RTD knew what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but so she and Shooty's doctor will start running around the universe next holiday season, thereabouts. They're saying the festive season. So Christmas-ish, thereabout, I'm hoping. So we'll get the 60th with David Tennant and Catherine Tate and all the specials, and then, that's late November, so then we puts us into the holiday season. I'm hoping that's what they mean, but who knows? They're very cagey about these things.
Yep.
As they are wont to do.
Somebody will leak it.
Yeah. In the meantime, there's always Big Finish.
Oh gosh, Big Finish.
Big Finish.
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah, like they really need to do anything to entice us to give them our dollars and cents.
I think is happy noises.
Yeah, but we already have information on the 60th anniversary Big Finish audio. so here's the 411 directly from Big Finish's mouth. Since landing in 1963, Doctor Who has made history as the world's longest-running action-adventure TV show. As we head into the adversary year, it's time to revisit the past and commemorate the legacy of those who came before. The Time War. The Doctor's been injured and brought to a Time Lord field hospital. His body glows with energy, but this is no regeneration into a future form. Instead, the Doctor's past faces begin to appear as he flits haphazardly between incarnations. Staggering to his TARDIS, the Doctor sets out to solve the mystery of his degeneration. Who has done this to him? How and why? From the Earth to the stars, across an array of familiar times and places, he follows clues to retrace his steps, countering old friends and enemies along the way. Tumbling through his lives, the Doctor must stop his degeneration before he loses himself completely. Doctor Who, Once and Future, stars Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, Christopher Eccleston, and David Tennant, with dozens more guests still to be revealed.
And the first thing I noticed was like they have everyone from the 4th to the 10th Doctor in order, with unbroken through the generations. Now, obviously, we don't have John Hurt as the War Doctor, R.I.P. Good sir.
Yeah,
but for all intents and purposes, it all goes from the 4th to the 10th.
That's all the living doctors that they have contracts with.
Yep. Matt Smith is too busy wrangling dragons right now.
Yeah. Well, we had this discussion. We had this discussion last episode too about that there's at some point, like, supposedly somebody had posted something somewhere that there was a waiting period from when a doctor leaves Doctor Who before Big Finish can snap them up, and Matt Smith is not there yet, which means it's gonna be even longer before we get Jodie. So
come on,
that might still be the case.
A clinger here, sign. It's good. It's kosher.
Yeah, really.
Seriously, I was like, I want Peter Capaldi and River Song.
Yes.
I want those 24 years on.
Yeah. I mean, there's still more to be revealed, so I'm sure there's going to be some surprises in there, especially because according to the producer, this is an 8-hour story.
Good boy.
And we're like, you pre-order it and you like get one a month.
Yeah.
I believe
it'll be released monthly, with the first 7 parts releasing between May and October 2023.
Oh, boy.
And then we get the final bit November 2024.
Which that is
makes me think this may tie into the 60th then.
It must, because I'm like, why wait a year? Especially since the anniversary is in 2023. And then by the time 2024 rolls, I'm like, oh yeah, that was last year, wasn't it? But I don't know. Yeah. I'm not in charge. Nobody asked me.
Yeah.
There's got to be reasons.
Yeah. It is available for pre-order. You can order just the digital download. Or the special edition CD, which does come with the digital download. The standard edition does come with the behind the scenes features, but none of the other bonus material.
But if you get the download, then I believe you get all the bells and whistles.
If it's a special edition.
If it's a special edition.
If it's a special edition one, yeah.
If you just get the regular download, you won't.
Yeah. Which is basically what they did for Light at the End for the 50th.
Right.
Yeah.
They had the standard edition and then the limited special edition, which, if you get the download, it's not limited.
Just remember, if you really like physical media, for the most part, Big Finish isn't doing physical media anymore, except in special cases like this.
Right.
So you may not get that CD in the mail right away, but you will get the digital downloads as soon as they're unlocked.
Available,
And the good thing about Big Finish is you can download the file to your computer, to your hard drive, to whatever, and it is yours. And you can put it on whatever whatever device thing you want to do. So it's not like, ooh, this is, just stuck in somebody else's encrypted server, and if they delete it, it's gone. You actually you do get to keep the file at least. So that's something that's something to keep in mind as you're thinking, oh, but do I want, because I'm kind of getting to where I'm like, oh, I really want I want physical media, because who knows what screwy thing's going to happen somewhere down the road. But at least I have the file. If I can back up the file,
Right.
then I'm happy. So, and that is possible with Big Finish. Otherwise, I have spent way too much money for it to go up in smoke at some point.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so there's that.
Yeah. So
Yay, Big Finish, you always have our backs.
yeah, they do.
Have my money.
And speaking of Doctor Who, Holly was just recently on Next Stop Everywhere.
Yes. Covering Jodie's era of the Doctor. And it was an awesome time.
Yep. And then there's also a new episode of Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, out there in the feeds. So, because nothing says Thanksgiving like order a census taker's liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. We did the 1991 Best Picture winner, The Silence of the Lambs. And I will warn you, it is another epic long episode. Not quite terms of endearment, but close.
Oh boy.
Something I don't know what it is at some of these movies where they're just a lot of psychological unpacking. We get into the weeds.
There's a lot of, pardon the pun, there's a lot of meat to sink your teeth into.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know it was weird. I was like, just going along, and I saw the feed, and I'm like, oh gosh, you're in the 90s now. Holy cow, when did that happen? You blink, and your little podcast grows up.
Yep. So those are out there, available for you to listen to pretty much wherever you see get your podcasts. So,
and just an FYI, you have a few days left to vote for December's book choice on Goodreads.
Yes. Get your votes in, get your thoughts in on the book for this month.
Yes.
And yeah, hopefully you did some reading over the holiday. Those of us who had a Thanksgiving holiday last week. Those who didn't, well, sorry you had to work.
Yep. Yeah. All right, moving on to feedback. We got some feedback from Shalane. And she says, thank you for the shout out for her being a guest on Gold Standard. She was on our Patreon episode for November. You're welcome. You were a good guest. And then she says, I think you already have a list of singers to talk about. Or she said, I think I already gave you a list of singers to talk about when we talked about Elton John. She might have. I'm going to go back and listen, go get the show notes.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah. Because I knowing me, I forgot to copy and paste it over to our master topic list. So thanks for the reminder.
She keeps us on our toes.
She does.
Yes, she does.
So, and then unfortunately she sent this, before we thought we were going to record last week, before illness and the holiday and everything took over. And this is actually something she had messaged me independently on Instagram or something because she'd come across a video, I think on TikTok, of somebody like memorializing all the celebrities we had lost so far this year. And she sent a list of the people that she recognized that we've lost so far this year, and unfortunately this list has got a name or two added to it since she sent this in. So yeah, this is just a small cross section of the sheer number that we have lost this year. So yeah, it's been a hard year.
Remember what year was it? There was one year, was it 2016, where it was like it just felt like, oh my gosh, there's so many, celebrities that we love
we lost, it was January of 2016 where we lost David Bowie and Alan Rickman and a whole bunch of people like all in one fell swoop, and it really, really sucked.
And like that whole year we're just like, what is going on, and now I look back and like, oh, you sweet summer child.
Little did we know.
I think that was the same year John Hurt died. So
yes, it was. I remember where I was when I got that news.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Me too. I was at a funeral.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, I was at the post-funeral meal, but still.
Yeah.
I had been at a funeral. So yeah.
Fun times.
It
was like 2016 happened, and it just, the universe just kept its foot on the gas.
Yeah.
It snowballed.
Yeah. So
it did indeed.
Yeah, I'd have to look, but I almost think that maybe since then we haven't really bothered to do like a year in review show since then because it's too depressing.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're just kind of like lost them. This happened, lost them.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie was good.
Yeah. Like occasionally would have a nice movie to talk about in between all the celebrity deaths. So yeah, the fandom year in review is kind of taking a back seat.
It's kind of been a downer, and it's like, why do we want to do this again?
Yep. Oh, yeah. It's not been a fun year with celebrity deaths at all. Yeah. So guess we can keep our fingers and toes crossed for the last 33 days of the year.
I don't know.
I'm not holding my breath.
No, because I'm like, well, remember, Betty White was on January 31st.
December 31st.
Yeah. My date.
She was the glue holding everything together.
I know, and I think it's just kind of fallen apart even more rapidly since then. Aren't we a cheery bunch?
Yeah, so let's move on to our other feedback.
You keep that record handy, but we'll ask for it.
Yeah.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to our other feedback from Aaron. Which Aaron's subject line on his email was like, not another thesis, I promise.
Oh boy.
Yep. So he said not another thesis. So yeah, it's only three. Okay. It's only 3 paragraphs.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding here. So he says, hello, my 5-ish hosts. I enjoyed the recap of The Power of the Doctor. Really, the only thing I could say is I agree with everything you wonderful ladies said. Biggest thing I agree with was the comment made about wondering what all that great writing was during the last 3 years. As much as I love this special, it also makes all those previous stories stick out as being that much weaker. Poor Jodie Whittaker, she deserved this kind of writing her whole tenure. Additionally, Sato Jawan is so great as the Master. I'm really trying to decide if he's my favorite incarnation or not. Sim, being my first Master, has been my favorite, but Dewan is gloriously unhinged. If that just doesn't paint if you don't get the right mental image in your head of what the master is with just the words gloriously unhinged, you need to have your imagination checked.
Because Sasha's kind of like a mix of Missy and Ainley.
Yeah, he's such a mix, and the fact that we don't know where his master falls, just says a lot about. Yeah. I mean, you see how the Doctor with the personalities, you can see a little bit of other incarnations poke out. So it's like with the Master, it's like it's a whole other level. So yeah, gloriously unhinged. I am loving that. We may need to put that on a T-shirt, Aaron.
Yes.
Knowing that Tennant was taking back for a few specials, I was curious how this change would occur. The way the Doctor's Purgatory was presented, my initial thought was that Tennant was reprising 10, and that iteration was pushing back through the Doctor's waiting room to return and finish any business he might feel he has left. If anything, I'm shocked that this is supposed to be a new Doctor with the same face. My biggest hope is that Tennant is truly creating a new incarnation rather than tapping back into the persona of 10. I love Tennant, and seeing a second take is going to be exciting. I have to wait and see. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll see a little bit of 10 because, again, previous personality quirks do tend to poke out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the incarnation's already started talking about teeth. So, who knows?
The teeth are what stand out. I mean, if it was Capaldi again, he'd say like, "Oh, I remember these kidneys."
Yeah. They're still the wrong color.
Right. Still not ginger.
Yep.
It takes I remember.
Angry again.
How do I fly this thing? Well, he's not in the TARDIS, and the TARDIS is not imploding or on fire, so I guess that's a good thing.
Hopefully he can just drive the TARDIS like normal and,
Yep. We'll see. My last comment is regarding the Doctor's wardrobe changing right away. I wondered the same thing, but a couple days ago, Davies stated why he didn't have Tennant and Whittaker's clothes, and he provides a link. I respect his decision here and commend him on his thinking. However, I just can't help thinking the hateful people are going to be hateful no matter what, and that the fandom was robbed of what could have been a funny moment. Even if 14 was only in 13's clothes for a few seconds, just log up to comment that the clothes don't fit right, I would have been a little happier, but again, I completely understand Davies' thinking here. And essentially, RTD said that he was concerned about people complaining about a man being in quote unquote women's clothing, essentially.
I have a minor quibble with that. Those clothes were not women's clothes. If it was a dress or, something more traditionally female, I'm like, I was just.
It's pants, a t-shirt, braces, and a long coat.
Right, unisex. It's unisex.
Yeah, it is very unisex.
No, that. I mean, the bust probably wouldn't have fit just right, and trust me, I know all about busts not fitting properly, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I'm just so glad you got rid of that monstrosity because I did not like her outfit. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna be honest. It just bugged me the whole time, but that's neither here nor there. But it's a different wardrobe incarnation sort of thing. So we'll see where it goes with new teeth and all, or no, old teeth, same as the new teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
new pants.
We got a Bob situation. Dang it!
Yeah. New pants, though. I mean, if you look at some of the shots of Tennant's this incarnation, he looks like he's channeling like Troughton with those plaid pants of his.
Yes,
Yep. There's some blending of the wardrobe here a little bit, I think, as is appropriate for an anniversary. Doctor, I suppose we can call him that. Sure. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
But this is take care, Aaron. So thank you, Aaron, for your feedback as always.
Yes.
And also thank you, Aaron, for being our new Patreon supporter. So
Woohoo!
we really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So, moving on, sounding the
Spoiler
alarm. Partially the reason Brittany is not here. She's also sick, so.
Yeah, although I think by now, anyone who... Well, okay. Brittany still doesn't want to be spoiled, so I shouldn't say anyone. But
yeah.
most people are, if they haven't seen it, they don't care, or they're okay with spoilers.
Yeah, or they saw the image, or they saw the title and the image for this episode, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'll skip this one."
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If you've not seen Black Panther: Wakanda Forever yet, turn off the episode and come back later.
Yeah, put a pin in it and come back.
Yeah.
Yep. If Facebook and Tumblr haven't spoiled you yet, turn around now.
Yeah. So, but Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, our final MCU film of 2022. It is the 30th film in the MCU.
Hard to believe. It doesn't seem
I can't believe we're at 30 already.
Does that count the TV shows too, or is
no,
that...
just the films.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the 30th film in the MCU. So yeah, once you throw in like the TV shows and the Disney Plus series, yeah, the number would be even higher,
closer to 40,
at least,
if you
if not closer to 50. Yeah, and technically this ends Phase 4. So you got to keep that in mind as well. So, but obviously this takes place post Infinity War Endgame. In universe, this takes place, the MCU at this point is about year 2026. So we are a couple years post Endgame, and the return of everybody from the snap, which of course T'Challa and Shuri had both been dusted from the snap. We know that Okoye was not, because she was literally the person reaching out, that T'Challa was reaching out to her when he became a pile of leaves, thanks to Thanos. But obviously this is not the film that Ryan Coogler wanted to make. As soon as they finished the first Black Panther, he immediately was like, okay, let's start working on the sequel. And because what they wanted to do was take from the comics, which in the comics, T'Challa becomes king as a child. And that is important, but we'll get to that. And he becomes king of Wakanda way younger, and the comic book run is him struggling to figure out what it means to be king and suddenly have all this responsibility. So what Ryan Coogler wanted to do was kind of play on that, but obviously T'Challa became king not as a child, but it still was rather sudden because his father was killed by, well, we now know it was Zemo, not Bucky, in Civil War. But so this would, and obviously the events of the first Black Panther movie, he officially becomes king properly doing the waterfall fight and everything, but then Killmonger shows up and everything goes, tits up, and then at the end of the movie we get the post-credit scene of Bucky's getting his new arm because Thanos is coming. So it's like T'Challa's not really had an opportunity to really like kind of sit down and be king of Wakanda yet. So that's what Ryan
Right.
Coogler really wanted to focus on with this movie was Killmonger, Thanos, the T'Challa being gone for 5 years and then suddenly coming back and then finally getting to be King of Wakanda. Now, Namor was always going to be the antagonist. I don't want to say villain so much because Namor is interesting compared to some other quote unquote villains or antagonists that we've seen in the MCU at this point. But Namor was always going to be the antagonist because, as we see in this movie, he is a threat to Wakanda. Obviously he wants the entire world to burn, but he's going to start with Wakanda. As you do. So that's what they were going to do. Now, obviously, Chadwick Boseman's passing put a big old monkey wrench in all of that. That's really they had to pivot. I mean, they were already facing kind of a because Chadwick died and we were smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. It was the summer of 2020. So things were kind of crazy, and then you have your star seemingly pass away out of nowhere, and Ryan Coogler, bless him. Again, kind of like with Bob Chapek. I'm not envious of this the hot seat he found himself in. So,
I mean, you had several options. You could recast, which that there are pros and cons to that. You could, just try to write around it, which is what they seem to have done. But yeah, either way, it was not going to be an easy fix, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And
really, whatever they decided to do, people were going to be unhappy with their decision. So, because again, you can't make everybody happy.
Nope.
So, but I think what they ended up doing, I think works. I mean, it sucks. I mean, this movie, other than knowing the relationship between these people, because for the most part, other than Namor, pretty much all the other faces we're seeing are people that we already know. We've got Shuri, we've got King Ramondo, we've got Okoye, we've got M'Baku. You've got, I mean, obviously Riri Williams is a new introduction as well. But we got Martin Freeman back as Everett Ross. We even got Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, or Val, as I'm going to call her, even though she hates that.
Did we get some lore drop surprise about Valentina and a certain someone? It was just like, whoa!
Yeah,
it's attract.
Like all the other stuff you put in here, you're gonna drop that little tidbit for a half a second and just be like, oh yeah, that's a thing. So, but for the most part, it's all faces and they're all faces and people that we already knew, and we know their relationship to each other. We know their personalities. So by their decision here to kill off T'Challa in universe would already be like heartbreaking for the characters, but you could just tell that I think for a lot of them, it was not that hard for them to tap into the grief. Because I mean, I was expecting for this to be emotional,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting in the movie theater, and I grabbed some extra napkins because I knew I was probably gonna need something to dab the eyes and maybe blow the nose. And gosh darn it, if they don't have me crying at the very beginning, just with the opening Marvel comic book page flip, in which I was kicking myself after the fact. I'm like, you dummy, they did that for Stan Lee. Of course they were gonna do it for Chadwick too.
Right.
Where the the Marvel logo comes up and we got the flipping pages, and in this case it's all Chadwick as T'Challa from all of his appearances. But in this case there's no music. It's completely silent, which is a first for any Marvel movie. So immediately they've got me crying just with that. I'm like, damn it, Marvel. It's like, because all we see is, T'Challa is ill. They never specify, but I don't think they need to. I mean, this is Wakanda. They're one of the most advanced, technology wise, one of the most advanced places on the entire planet. So if their king is sick and dying and they're not able to do anything from him, whatever it is, it's something so serious it doesn't matter whether it has a name or not. And of course, thanks to Killmonger, we no longer have the heart-shaped herb to turn to as a source of power. So poor Shuri is trying to do everything she can to try and 3D print essentially new heart-shaped herbs, and it's not working. So T'Challa ends up dying, and then they have the beautiful funeral sequence, which I was saying before we started recording Drug Cinema when I was talking to Charles and Zan, because I'd seen it earlier that day, and I said, you know what, whenever I die, I want to have a funeral like a Wakandan funeral, because I mean, even T'Challa says, I don't remember if it's in Civil War, if it's in the first Black Panther movie, he says something along the lines with, in my country, death is not an ending, it's just a stepping off point. Because for the people of Wakanda, those that believe in the ancestral plane and Bas and all the gods and stuff, to them, death is not goodbye. It's really till I see you again, till I pass along too, or if you're someone that gets to take on the mantle of the Black Panther and consume the heart-shaped herb, you get to visit the ancestral plane, at least momentarily, and connect with your ancestors. So they know it's not the end. So for them, funerals are not a bunch of people wearing black, eyes downcast, sobbing, being really sad. It's a celebration of life. Everyone's wearing white, and they're painted, and they're wearing this beautiful jewelry, and there's music, and people are dancing, and the body is taken in a casket through the town so that everybody could pay their respects. But again, everybody's wearing white, and it's just really beautiful. And then the body and the casket are taken away, off to a resting place, appropriate for their beliefs. But it's so beautiful, and it's like, that is way more what I would want for a funeral for myself. Is it's like, you can be sad, because that's what humans do. When you lose someone you care about, you're gonna be sad. So, don't act like you're not sad, but at the same time, don't wallow and live in your grief. Recognize this person that you knew and loved, and the life that they lived. And, if you believe in some sort of afterlife, whatever your belief is, believe that this is not the end. You'll see them again. As we learn, Shuri is struggling with that we find out that, her belief in their gods and everything was shaky to begin with. And then with T'Challa's death, she pretty much has given up on her beliefs. But it's just the whole funeral thing was just absolutely beautiful. And I just, and the fact that they painted his portrait on the side of a building, one of the village buildings. I've seen that all in the trailer and everything. It was like, it's so beautiful. So, which was a nice little uptick from the crying. And then we get into the story, and then they give me plenty of other reasons to cry, again and again and again. But with the introduction of Namor, like I said, you could find reasons to argue why he's a villain. I'm sure there are probably some people that could find reasons to, to argue that he's potentially a good guy. I don't think he's necessarily either. I think just antagonist is the best
right
thing
he's
for
in
him.
The middle.
He's in the middle
on the fence. Yeah.
Because he is, what we find out is when T'Challa made his speech at the end of the first Black Panther movie, and started doing the outreach, building that center in Oakland and everything, essentially revealing to the world that Wakanda is not this piddly little third world country that you thought it was. A lot of people are like, oh, cool. But then there are some other people, like apparently the French, that apparently think that they need to get their hands on vibranium, and
by any means necessary. If we go against the Accords, and I loved the Queen just coming in and breaking UN,
not even the Accords, because the Accords aren't a thing anymore. We found that out. That's right. The protocol. We found that out in She-Hulk. The Sokovia Accords aren't even a thing anymore. But there's still like UN like protocol and other like international agreements. Yeah, and then like the French show up on this Wakandan refinery, trying to like beat the crap out of them to get their hands on the weapons. So like, it's guarded by the Dora Milaje. Really?
Yeah.
You really think you were going to get past the Dora Milaje?
It's
so back to France. Go back to France. Sit your ass down and have a baguette and a glass of wine.
Exactly.
And you do know that they take jurisdiction wherever they find themselves. So you're kind of screwed regardless, because you might be trespassing, but they're never trespassing. So just suck it.
Pretty much. So, but yeah, Queen Ramonda, when she goes off on the UN,
I was just like, more popcorn, please. I'm enjoying this. You go.
Somebody hand Angela Bassett something. A gold star.
Yes. A Golden Globe. Some sort of an award, please. And thank you.
Yeah. She just lets them have it. I love it.
Right.
So. And then you got like all the different countries are like, it wasn't us. And then Dora Milaje bring in the culprits and find out they speak French, and the French representative is like, oops.
Oh crap. The end.
Like, come on, France. Did you learn nothing from Napoleon?
Yeah. It's like, seriously, you didn't think they were going to find out?
Stick with what you do best.
Yeah.
Stick with what you do best. Pastries and wine. And everyone's happy. Oh. But then Namor shows up.
Oh,
because the U.S. government in secret has somehow they've got their hands on essentially a really, really fancy metal detector that only can detect vibranium. And that gets, because the vibranium is in the bottom of the ocean, which the Wakandans, as far as they're concerned, vibranium's not available anywhere else on the planet. Again, we'll get to that because that's important. But Namor knows better, and his people know better. So they go and kill all these people, being like, "You're not getting your hands on this vibranium; it's us." Which causes a whole international kerfuffle.
Yeah,
Because now, because the Wakandans find out, and they're like, "Okay, where did this machine come from?" And Shuri is all like, she's got her head buried in her work. Like, she did what she was supposed to do as far as mourning T'Challa, but she can't quite come to terms with it. So she's just buried her head in just, her science and developing tech, and she's created these new suits for the Dora Milaje, which end up becoming the Midnight Angels, which is a totally cool thing. So which we're gonna see more of those when we get like a Okoye / Dora Milaje like series on Disney Plus in the future. But of course, Queen Ramonda is all like, "Well, we've just been threatened by this guy who has pointy ears and wings on his feet." And I think, "Well, we need to find out who made this vibranium metal detector." And Shuri's like, "I'll do it." And of course, Ramonda's like, "Hell no, my girl's not leaving the barriers of this country." But of course, Shuri gets her way. So she and Okoye go off to MIT, where they meet Riri Williams. Well, first they got to figure out where, because they don't know it's Riri. They just know it's some scientist that supposedly developed this piece of tech. So they got to go visit. What is it? Shuri calls him my favorite colonizer.
Yes, and the snark between Shuri and Okoye during this whole thing is just awesome.
Yeah. Oh.
So so does Riri, is she the only one who knows how to use this thing? And that's why they have to go after her? Or
no, it's
she created the tech to find the stuff.
Well, she didn't. When Okoye and Shuri find her, thanks to Everett's info that he's not supposed to be giving them, but he does anyway, because he feels like he owes, especially Shuri, a debt, because she literally saved his life. So he gives them the information they need to get to MIT and find Riri. Riri says she only made it because she has a professor that essentially bet her that she couldn't do it.
And now the military has.
But now the U.S. government has it, but we don't. This is one of the, again, when we get to the end of this time, we can speculate what's going to happen in the future. This is one of those threads. This is like the one thread that they left dangling. That I'm like, they better come back to this in the future, because all she says is, "My professor told me I couldn't do it."
And no name was given.
And so she did. No name was given. The professor's never brought up again.
Nope.
Nothing. So we get to the end of the movie, and I'm like,
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So that I've seen some videos of people speculating about who this professor either is or is connected to, depending on what Marvel decides to do as far as character introductions in the future. So Shuri and Okoye take Riri to try to get away, because at this point now the feds are on their tail, along with some other people. And they end up being attacked by they go on a chase, which is always cool. Riri busts out her Iron Man suit that she has at that time, which is really cool. So we get to see that. We get to see, of course, Okoye kick some ass as the the badass general of the Dora Milaje that she is. But in the process of it all, Namor and some of his minions show up and take Riri and Shuri to their little under the sea abode. So I can't call it Atlantis because it's not Atlantis. Now, in some comics, it's Atlantis. And Namor. Okay, so Namor is like one of the very, very first Marvel comic book characters. From even before it was Marvel, like all the way back when it was Timely Comics in the late 30s. He's Namor the Submariner, and he was Marvel's very first superhero alongside Angel and Human Torch, who was an android. So Bill Everett, who is a writer and artist, who went on to later create Daredevil, was a huge fan of anything nautical and sea related. So he created Namor as essentially a water-based opposite of the Human Torch. You got fire, you got water. So Namor first appears in the unpublished Motion Pictures Funnies Weekly #1 in April 1939, before making his official debut in Marvel Comics #1 in October of 1939, the first publication by Marvel's predecessor, Timely Comics. So Namor goes way, way back. And they, since then, since the creation of like film and television, people have been trying to make a live action adaptation of Namor for a long time, and it's just never happened.
I think they pulled it off very nicely.
Yeah, well, and part of the reason is there's a other certain aquatic DC character who looks very similar.
Yes.
Who's way more popular by the name of Aquaman.
Right. And Jason Momoa as his...
And played by Jason Momoa. So
this is a case of, John Carter inspired Superman, but nobody knows who, John Carter. It's like, oh no, this movie is copying Superman, but really John Carter came first.
Little bit.
But,
in this week's episode of Who Warned or Who Did It Better.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's supposed to be Atlantis, but because Hollywood is kind of cutthroat and likes to stab each other in the back, and they're a little Sue happy. Yeah. Marvel just decided, we're going to sidestep that little issue, and it's going to be...
It's Talocan instead. And it's set in essentially the peninsula of Mexico, right off the peninsula of Mexico.
Well, they could have made it Atlantica.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing a Little Mermaid movie. Come on.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, so they went with this Aztec Mesoamerican influence instead. Which I think in itself is really, really cool. And from what I've seen on social media, the people that are descendant from like the ancient Mayan culture and some of the few people who still speak these languages that they actually use in this movie were just like gobsmacked at how well they treated it and how well they made it work in the movie. They had people come in that are familiar with the language, kind of like with Dances with Wolves, where they brought people in that knew how to speak some of these native, these indigenous languages, so that the actors were saying things as correctly as possible for not being native speakers. So I really got to hand it to Marvel to go that extra. I know especially with the Black Panther that's something they've since the first Black Panther has been very important to them, that obviously with the very heavy African influences in the music and the costumes and everything, that it doesn't come off as either appropriation or a caricature of the what it's based off of. They tried to be very respectful to it while still making sure it had that Marvel feel and twist to it. And they've done the same thing with this Mayan influence in these languages and stuff. So I really commend them for that. So what's really funny is Tina Huerta, who plays Namor, got the job. Well, Ryan Coogler, I guess he auditioned or whatever, and Ryan Coogler went to him to offer him the job and asked him how his swimming was, and his response was, "Well, I've never drowned before." That's because he couldn't swim at all.
Really?
So he's never swum.
He never swum. Well, that's true. He's never drowned. So he immediately started taking swimming lessons after getting the job.
Smart idea. Very smart idea.
Well, when you're about to get this really big role,
I mean, look at
not gonna let a little thing like not being able to swim stop you.
Yeah, I mean,
look at the lights. Sink or swim.
Look at how lots of actors have done something similar. I mean, look at the lights that George Lazenby was able to BS his way through to get the James Bond gig.
Yep. That's how he's
like, hey, even if you can't necessarily do it, if you know you're a quick learner, then why not? So, but yeah, I mean, Namor's really, his entire thing is his beef is a combination of, he doesn't want the rest of the world suddenly descending on the depths of the ocean with drills and all sorts of stuff, trying to dig up vibranium because they want it.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Wakanda, they're just like, wait, there's vibranium elsewhere on the planet? We thought we only had it. Because, we get the legend at the beginning of the first Black Panther movie about how this asteroid landed on Earth that was solid vibranium. And that's where the country of Wakanda came from. And that's what they've based everything on. And then it turns out that their history, which, their history itself technically is still true. An asteroid did land there of vibranium, and that's where Wakanda came from. It just turns out that that's not the only asteroids that hit Earth.
Which is actually a good, good news for the rest of the world, because if another Thanos level threat comes, well, hey, we need to, get stuff to,
and that is very, very possible. And I think that's why a lot of people in the UN are, in some cases, going through very nefarious means to try to get their hands on weapons, because they've all seen with the snap what kind of potential threats are out there in the universe. I mean, Nick Fury was just making nuclear weapons, essentially.
Yeah. It's like,
in the first Avengers because of Thor. So
it's like, what do you expect people to do? To just sit back and be like, oh, well, we'll just wait for the next one to show up? No. And, I mean, and we can have the debate whether it's right or wrong, but at the same time, it's like, I can't really blame them for trying, but if there was if there were multiple vibranium asteroids, and heck yes, space weapons for everybody, so we can send that whatever next mad titan or thing, whatever comes up, we can defend ourselves.
Exactly.
Because nobody wants to get snapped again.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Oh. Yeah, because according to Namor, who at this point he's like 500 years old or something like that.
Oh.
Just 500.
He's pretty spry, isn't he?
Yeah, his people, as we see them in this movie, are descendants from ancient Mayans who were just regular people living in, what now we consider Mexico. And because of colonization, they start coming down with things like smallpox and start killing, people start just dropping dead all over the place. But one of their, like their holy men or whatever, supposedly receives a vision that leads him to this underwater plant that glows. And it's essentially the cousin to the heart-shaped herb, where it grows in vibranium enriched soil, but in this case underground. So, it's like the sea plant equivalent of the heart-shaped herb. And so they're able to create this medicine from this herb, and they give it to the people, including Namor's mother, who's pregnant with him at the time, and it causes them to become more aquatic. It changes their skin to blue. They can no longer breathe the air. They have to go into the water and breathe like fish. And she gives birth to Namor there. But because he received it via in utero as opposed to drinking it directly, he's not blue, but he does have the pointy ears and the wings on his feet. And he can breathe both underwater and on land. And he is a mutant. He uses the word mutant. So he,
my ears,
at least as far as
right away,
as far as film, as far as film is concerned, he is the first mutant. Obviously, he's not the first mutant in the MCU. That's right. Kamala Khan, because she's already been bestowed with that moniker. But as far as the films are concerned, Namor is the first mutant. Again, that might be important. We'll come back to that. But eventually his mom dies of old age. Her last request is she wants to be buried back on land in their home, their homeland where she started from. So they emerge. It's so, a long, long time has passed. So when they come back, like the land has been colonized. There's like a church now. So there's like a priest and, other like native indigenous people essentially being treated as slaves, making them do like the heavy labor and stuff for the white man. And they become so upset at this that they end up killing everybody. And like the priest is one of the last people to die, and they tell him, essentially tells Namor, it's like, you have no love in your heart, and that's where the name Namor comes from, is essentially means no love or no heart. So since then he's kind of had a chip on his shoulder. He's done the best he can as a leader of his people, in their home. They found a way to again use vibranium, a lot like Wakanda, to make their society function, including having a underwater sun. So that and they have technology so that some of them have like this little mouthpiece bits that they can put on their mouth and on their like gills on their neck so that they can be above water. So they're the underwater equivalent of Wakanda. with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. So that's really what his concern is T'Challa opened up Wakanda to the world. Now the world knows that vibranium exists, and now they know that these really crazy potential threats exist, like Thanos.
Mhm.
So now everybody wants vibranium. Where do they go? The ocean. Who lives in the ocean? Namor and his people. So Namor is like, tells King Ramonda, like, you need to stop these crazy, above water folks from getting their hands on vibranium coming at, potentially knocking on my front door accidentally, or I'm gonna show you what's what.
Uh-huh.
And of course, Ramonda is all like, he's just like, I'm not supposed to be queen anymore, she's like, I was just happy. I was just happy being mom to the king and his sister and all this cool stuff, and then all this shit happens. What the hell?
What do you mean? There's another source of vibranium.
Exactly, and then Shuri gets taken.
Your boy promised.
Yeah, so then Shuri gets taken. And of course Ramonda's like, oh, definitely not having that. My one remaining child is now missing in the depths of the ocean. I need help. So she doesn't get on the horn. She gets on a plane or, a Wakandan jet and takes off to Haiti and is like, hey, Nakia. And this is after Okoye. This is after Okoye gets fired as general of the Dora Milaje for losing Shuri.
And we also get the drop that Okoye is a sibling.
Yeah.
I
don't think so. I don't
just
think
the way
so.
She said mother. I didn't know.
No, because everybody refers to her as her mother or queen mother. So I think it's more just a term of endearment.
Okay.
So, but
for
it
was hard to say.
Yeah, no, I think it's more just they're so close they might as well be family.
Right.
So that's just the way they treat each other as one big family. But yeah, like again, Ramonda, give Angela Bassett another gold star because she lays into Okoye. Woo!
Yowza.
It's brutal.
Uh-huh.
So she's like, yeah. So she goes off to Haiti where Nakia's been. She's teaching children. She's become like a teacher of this school, but on top of like the usual things you would teach kids, your alphabet and your math and stuff, they're also teaching them things like how to grow their own crops, and like how to weave fabric and stuff, so how they can be self-sufficient, which I think is pretty cool, and live off the land if they need to. So she goes off to Nakia and she's like, you used to be our best spy. My daughter's been taken. Please, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I need your help,
Mm-hmm.
And Nakia's like, okay, fine. So Nakia manages to find Shuri and Riri, rescues them, and then shit really hits the fan because now you've got Val, who knows that Ross has been talking to the Wakandans, even though he's not supposed to, because she's paranoid like that, and knows the way his brain works because they used to be married. How's that for a little tidbit they just dropped in there?
Yeah, and once again, Everett, what in the heck were you thinking? I know opposites attract, but yowza!
Yeah. Like, they're just talking, and she's like, blah, 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 when we were married. I'm like, what?
Back it up here. Did I just hear you correctly?
Hold on a second here. That explains so much and still doesn't explain anything.
Right.
But of course we know what Val is doing. She's the head of the CIA. But on the side, she's also building up the Thunderbolts, her own little kind of anti-Avengers, which obviously ex wannabe Captain America is part of. Yelena is likely to be part of. So, and she wants her to get her hands on vibranium. And not just for the CIA. She wants it for her own little
personal agenda
that we will see when we get to the Thunderbolts. So, but then that's almost like its own thing that doesn't necessarily end, but it kind of just takes a back burner. It doesn't necessarily become as important in this movie as it will in the future, obviously, because when we get to the Thunderbolts,
yeah, they're laying plot threads. Let's just put it that way.
they're laying shit down. But with Shuri's rescue, Namor is all like, "Well, crap, she knows where we live and knows how to get here. We can't have that.
This isn't good."
Yeah. So, and Shuri knows this. Shuri knows. He's like, "Oh crap, he's gonna be following me." So he immediately brings his people, lays an assault on Wakanda, essentially flooding the city, because they have the ability to get past the boundaries that Wakanda has. Probably because it never occurred to the Wakandans that they needed to go like all the way to the ocean floor. Would be my guess. Or it's because their stuff is made out of vibranium, and vibranium can't fight against itself, who knows? So they flood the city, and in the process, Riri almost drowns, but Ramonda saves her, but in the process Ramonda ends up drowning, so we end up losing Queen Ramonda in this, which does not help with Shuri's mental health at all. So Shuri's out for Shuri's already Shuri was already pissed off at the death of her brother and guilt because she wasn't able to save him. Now her mother is dead. So she's really pissed off. But back when they were kind of looking like they were going to be friends, Namor gave Shuri a piece of jewelry that happens to have some of that plant in it. Mm-hmm. So she uses all of her sciencey stuff and is able to use the chemical makeup of that, because it is very similar to the heart-shaped herb, to create a heart-shaped herb that actually works, that she can 3D print. So she decides to take on the mantle of the Black Panther. They don't bury her in the dirt and the sand and everything. But she does take it and goes to the ancestral plane, which somebody in the video pointed this out, and it's something I did not realize when the difference between T'Challa's trip to the ancestral plane, Killmonger's, and Shuri's. It's T'Challa is in the full-on ancestral plane, obviously. It looks like something out of The Lion King.
Right.
When Killmonger goes, he's back in the apartment he grew up in as a kid.
Right.
But you can see bits of the ancestral plane out the window.
Poking through.
So when Shuri goes to the ancestral plane, she's in the throne room, but you can see the ancestral plane off in the distance, but she's not actually in it. And somebody theorized that if someone, like, it probably depends on the specific person how specific you want to get, but it's like if the person has either Well, in this specific case, they said it's both Shuri and Killmonger have a lot of anger and resentment still in their hearts. So they're not allowed to access the ancestral plane fully.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're
they're
in a location where they can see the ancestral plane but actually can't get to it. Because of the anger and resentment that they still have in their hearts is keeping them from fully accessing it. Unlike T'Challa, who had gone through the grieving process of his father being killed, and all the stuff with thinking it was Bucky and turns out it's Zemo, and the fact that he could have gone out for vengeance and killed Baron Zemo, but didn't. But instead turned him off to the authorities, so that showed a lot of growth and everything. So that's why T'Challa was actually able to access the full ancestral plane. So I thought that was cool. So Shuri's in the throne room version of the ancestral plane. And of course, we all think she's going to see her mother. And that's who Shuri thinks she's going to see. Killmonger? The camera sweeps around. There's Michael B. Jordan just hanging out on that throne. I'm like, oh, I did not see that coming.
I kind of figured it was going to be him just from the trailers that I had seen. And I'm just like, he hasn't shown up yet. What would be the major plot twist that would set Shuri off a little bit more? And
I mean,
hello.
He's dead. So it's like, why would he show up?
Right.
I'm sure that there were probably some people about, oh, this is where they're going to do like a CGI Chadwick Boseman. But no, it's Killmonger. It's Michael B. Jordan. Wait, it's Killmonger. Yeah. And of course, Killmonger, even in death, is Killmonger,
snarky.
Where it's like, where he's like, your brother was a pacifist, and he didn't have the guts to do what needs to be done. So he's like, he's essentially antagonizing.
Poke the
Shuri,
bear, poke the bear, poke the panther, poke the panther.
Like, are you? Yeah, it's like, are you gonna be like your brother? You're gonna be like me and do get revenge and blah 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 blah. Which is essentially what it boils on down to, because then, she gets her Black Panther suit, and they go out to the middle of the ocean with a bunch of the Dora Milaje and M'Baku and some of his tribesmen, some other different tribes who are willing to fight and everything to try and they'll engage with the others while Shuri gets Namor to land, because they realize that if he stays out of the water for too long, he dries out and becomes weak. So they have this big old knockdown, drag out fight, and it gets brutal. Like, he ends up spearing Shuri right through the abdomen, which, if she wasn't in the Black Panther suit, I'm sure would be fatal. But she's got all the suit itself, and then all the tech and everything, I'm sure was able to stop the bleeding or whatever. And she has the moment. She has the opportunity to kill Namor and be more like Killmonger, but she decides not to. She realizes that she needs to be more like her brother and gets Namor to yield, and they reach an agreement. What could have been... both of them could have killed the other and feel completely justified, but the fact that they were able to hold themselves off, and not only just hold themselves off, but to reach an agreement, says a lot about both the characters. And that's why I said I don't think you could just paint Namor truly as a villain.
Right.
Granted, we see when they go their separate ways, that Namor is back, with his people in, back underwater, biding his time, because he does have like one person that's all like, like, why are you, being friendly with them? And he's like, well, they're an ally now. And he's like, I know down the line, something's gonna happen. Shit's gonna hit the fan again, and we're gonna need to call on them, or they're gonna need to call on us, and that'll be the true test. Essentially, he knows that there's something, something is likely to come along, and he's not wrong.
Right.
At this point, I don't think he knows what's coming like we do. But he knows something is likely to come along, like a Thanos or something. So he's willing to bide his time. So, and then Shuri decides that she doesn't want to be queen of Wakanda, so they all gather for the waterfall ceremony. And M'Baku's like, yeah, she won't be joining us. She sends her regards. I will be fighting to claim the throne, which is something that he and Shuri decided. I mean, it wasn't just like M'Baku like before, where he's like, I'm gonna fight T'Challa, knowing full and well I'm not gonna win. Just because somebody has to do it. In this time, M'Baku will be king of Wakanda. He won't be the Black Panther. Shuri will continue to be the Black Panther, but M'Baku will be king because Shuri doesn't want that responsibility.
Right.
So she decides instead to go to Haiti to visit Nakia, and complete the mourning ritual that her mom started, which is the burning of the mourning, the burial ceremony clothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of your sign that you're ending your mourning period, as you burn the clothing. So Shuri decides to go to Haiti to complete that, and then we only have the one mid-credit scene, and that's where Shuri gets to meet her nephew, which I kind of expected was coming, because they were all like, they kept being very cagey about like Okoye would talking to Nakia and be like, you just up and disappeared, and she's like, well, after the blip and everything, because I mean, she and T'Challa had a thing, and then T'Challa got blipped and was gone for 5 years, and then he suddenly comes back, and then suddenly he's sick, and she knew that he was sick. He was she was one of the few people that knew right away. And she just had this like, oh, it was too hard, it was too difficult, the memories were too sad, I just couldn't come back. And it turns out that may be true on one level.
There was something else.
There was a little something else, like the baby that she and T'Challa had together.
Yes.
Yeah.
She got pregnant in theory, right before the blip. And then would have had the baby while T'Challa was gone, and when T'Challa was back. Because at this point, little T'Challa is like 6 or 7 years old, so he would have had to be conceived right before the blip. But yeah, he's so cute though.
Yes. Oh yes. Good casting.
Yeah, he's adorable. So he's got a Haitian name, Toussaint. Yeah, which is a nice nod to Toussaint, who helped lead a rebellion against the French in Haiti. Again, the French, but trying to take over places. Stick with what you're good at. Toussaint, he goes by that, but his Wakanda name is T'Challa, so he's fully aware of who he is and who his father was. But they wanted him to live as far away from Wakanda and the pressures of being the crown prince of this nation and have him grow up as quote unquote normal as possible. So, but yeah, there's a little boy T'Challa, Crown Prince T'Challa there that someday may be king of Wakanda. What's interesting is so he would have been born during the blip at some point, obviously, within the first 9 months thereabouts of the blip. But so he and Morgan Stark are actually kind of close in age.
Right, yeah.
Which I think is kind of cool. So
the baby Avengers.
Yeah, yep. They're the real baby Avengers. So, but I
smell a Disney Junior spin-off.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Yep. So I mean, it's like I said, it's a beautiful movie. It's very moving. You know, this whole idea of loss, and what that means and how we all grieve differently. Is going to resonate with anybody who's ever lost anyone that they care about, you know, whether it's a sibling or a parent or a grandparent or a coworker or whatever. Which I think is very, it's very human. I mean, it's a very human theme that, you know, you strip away all the superhero comic book stuff. It's very realistic. And on the surface, this is one of those movies where it's like, if you're not necessarily paying attention to what every, you know, tiny little thing that's going on in the MCU, you just be like, look, T'Challa had a kid. That's cool. And you might be like, you know, and Riri Williams obviously is really cool. She's gonna, you know, Ironheart, we're gonna get her series, which is going to pick up right after the end of this. So unfortunately, her souped up Wakandan made Ironheart suit she does not get to keep. So Shuri does rebuild her car for her, which is nice.
Yes.
She's got this really cool sports car, a la Coulson, although it's a different make and model, but she helped build with her dad. So Shuri did make sure her car got rebuilt, but she's not allowed to keep any of the Wakandan tech, and obviously she can't keep her notes and everything for the vibranium detector. But obviously Riri is now going to be more than likely one of the new young Avengers, right up there with Kate Bishop, you know, Cassie, as we'll see his stature here in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. You know, the younger crowd. So she'll be a fun addition. I like her. She doesn't get a whole lot of screen time. I mean, obviously her being she's super, super smart. They you know, they made her a little older than she is in the comics, because I think in the comics she starts going to MIT at like 16 or something like that. Here she's 19, which I mean still makes her way younger than the existing OG Avengers that we still have. But you know, obviously an adult compared to some of the others, which are still kids. As you know, if you haven't graduated high school yet, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, Kamala, but you know, technically you're still in high school. So, but she's again very, very smart with science, math, all of those things. Yeah, she seems to have a very good personality. Like I said, she doesn't get a whole lot of screen time. It's just an introduction. So she'll get more fleshed out when we get the Ironheart series, but I like her so far.
Oh yeah, I like what I saw of her. I'm looking forward to
she's
learning
cool.
more about her character.
Yeah, she's really cool. And it'll be good to have someone like her on our side. Like I said, some of the videos that I've watched of people who are smarter than me and have read more of the comics than I have, there's different speculations. Of course, at this point, it's pure speculation, fan speculation. But the one video I liked, one theory that I saw that I really liked, is how some of the events in this are more connected to the Eternals than people might realize, which is good, because right now the Eternals are just kind of sitting over here like, okay, we're ready. Meanwhile, we got the Halloween special, which helps again feed into Blade. But that's about it. So the vibranium that Namor's, his people have used throughout the years. Like I said, they've got a lot of weapons, obviously not like electronic weapons, they still have weapons. They got spears and different things that they can fight with, along with other things made out of vibranium. But the vibranium that helped feed the soil, underwater soil, to create that cousin plant of the heart-shaped herb comes from a asteroid, very much like the asteroid from the origin story of Wakanda. Thing is, this asteroid, because of where it landed off of the coast of Mexico, is, at least in universe, is the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. So it landed 66 million years ago, as opposed to the 2.5 billion years ago that the Wakandan asteroid landed. Now, I mean, it is perfectly plausible that multiple asteroids could hit the Earth. The odds of 2 asteroids that happen to be solid vibranium is a little more questionable. However, the Celestials, who we learned more about in the Eternals movie, are born from seeds that are deposited into a planet's core via an asteroid.
Oh.
So, maybe that first asteroid, the dino-killing one, is that Celestial that started to hatch in Eternals and did not obviously fully come to fruition, which gets a little nod in She-Hulk at one point.
Right.
It's a blink and you miss. It's a ticker when the TV is on at one point. It says something about like giant hand or head emerges from ocean.
Right.
So it has been acknowledged. For those people that are like, oh, they haven't even acknowledged it, so that, the Eternals. Yes, they have. Now, the second asteroid that hit 2.5 million years ago, that is the Wakandan asteroid. Is it just pure coincidence that a second vibranium asteroid hit? Obviously not as large enough to cause a full-scale, genocide like it did kill extinction event like it killed the dinosaurs, possibly. Or was this one sent intentionally so that Wakanda would become a thing and flourish and help add to the flourishing and evolution of the entire planet, which is what the planet needs for that Celestial to hatch?
Because I don't think it will be Eagle trying to play games.
No, the video I watched actually thinks that maybe it is Kang. that is
Makes
responsible.
sense.
And that's why they think Kang, well, obviously we've seen him in Loki season 1. We're going to see another version of him in Quantumania coming up soon. Happy birthday to me. That Kang, when you have to go back to what his appearance in Loki, in the final episode of Loki, where he kind of explains his origin story ish,
Right.
and talks about how he's kind of stuck in this loop, but it keeps all the other hymns in check. And it's because that version of him gets killed. That sets, the others on loose. Is that you'll have to watch the video, because I'm not going to try to regurgitate, because this guy was obviously, he'd done his research and was better equipped at it. But it involves the multiverse and new universes springing up, and the fact that Kang, or at least a version of Kang, is now hiding in the quantum realm, which is outside of space and time, and obviously not affected by other things, which is why Scott Lang didn't get blipped and was only gone for 5 weeks or whatever, instead of 5 years like everybody else. That Kang might be a bigger deal than just beyond Loki and Quantumania, and this may end up feeding into things like the Secret Wars and our next big Avengers movie. Now, that being said, the same video, the person was speculating, again, talking about Riri Williams' professor that does not get a name or ever mentioned again, could be connected, if not is, which they didn't think so, because they're like, I don't see this character being just like a college professor. It doesn't seem their MO. But this college professor that, essentially had Shuri do all the brain work for them, and then they turn around and sold this device to the US government to use, could be connected to Victor Von Doom.
Ooh.
Interesting.
I could see that.
So, but yeah. And then there's this whole other thing about Celestials and vibranium, and whether it, that may be what they use to explain why we now have mutants in the MCU. So yeah, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, because like I said, I'm not going to try to regurgitate what the guy said, because he's way more well read on this type of stuff than I am. But I thought it was quite interesting, so I'm like, oh, because I remember the Celestials are like born out of the center of planets after they reach a certain maturity, but I totally forgot about the fact that that they have to kind of impregnate the planet first.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what if it is an asteroid made of vibranium? What if the Celestials are made out of vibranium? Maybe that's why the Celestials are able to utilize the Infinity Stones without them injuring them, because they're made of vibranium. Who knows? So, potentials.
Oh boy.
Potential ideas. Stuff.
Stuff is happening.
Stuff is happening. I mean, stuff is happening either way. Now, whether it's going to play out like this, TBD. But for anyone out there that's like, oh, it doesn't seem that connected, it might be more connected than you think. Yeah, this is, like I said, this is technically the end of phase 4. So now we're going to go into phase 5, leading up to our next big Avenger movie. So you just got to remember, we've done all this shit before. leading to the first Avengers. We'll get there. But sometimes it takes a few years. I mean, it took us 4 years from I Am Iron Man to the Battle of New York. So.
Right.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned and try to keep your head on straight.
Yeah.
But
now we sit back and wait until Quantumania.
Yeah.
Enjoy your Christmas break, because
yeah.
then it's gonna ramp up again. Alrighty. So, well, if any of our listeners want to chime in on their thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, or anything else that we discussed during this podcast today, you can send us feedback. Our email address is 5ishfangirls@gmail.com. And you can also visit our website, which is the5ishfangirls.com. And there you can find links to all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can also leave comments at those various places. We also treat those as feedback. So you are hereby notified of that. And we also have obviously show notes, links to things that we've referenced here in this episode and previous episodes as well. And then also, of course, ways to support the podcast, Patreon, our merch shop, and other things. And as always, we thank you for your support, whether it is through Patreon or through leaving feedback or commenting and even just liking our stuff on Facebook. It all is very much appreciated and loved, and we hope you guys are doing well out there in podcast land, wherever it is that you find yourself. And take care. And we will see you next time. We hope.
Mm-hmm.
As long as sickness and weather do not prevent tangents and squeak.
Yeah.
Which has kind of been happening lately, unfortunately.
Yeah. Or as long as I don't die of squee at GalaxyCon this weekend.
Right.
Is Chauncey going with you?
Yes, but he's going, but he's not going.
Okay, well, I'm just like, Chauncey will have to be the your handler.
Yes.
Or the spotter, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that you come back.
Your carer.
In one piece. Yes, your carer. There you go. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
Chauncey, make sure she comes back in one piece, please.
Yeah.
That's your job.
Yeah. 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 Well, we'll see if he accomplishes that. So make sure you're following on the social. Make sure you're following on the social medias for all the pictures and stuff. So
we shall envy from afar.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got to get through this dentist appointment first.
Oh.
So anyway,
this is earn your happy ending.
Yeah. So. Well. Alrighty then. So with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Sally from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Wakanda Forever. You have been listening to the 5ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at the5ishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official 5ish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/5ishfangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at 5ishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.